I don't care what you believe. That's not the point. The point is that we have a shared ancestry, a common history. And whether you call yourself Christian, pagan, or something else entirely, that truth remains. Belief is important, no doubt. But as we explore our traditions and mythology, let's be careful not to learn them from those who clearly seek to divide us. There are those who want us at each other's throats, rewriting our past to pit one side against the other. But the truth is more complex than that. This video isn't here to tell you what to believe. It's here to help guide those looking to explore our pre-Christian culture and belief systems. It's here to show you that Christianity and paganism are not mutually exclusive enemies, but rather expressions of the same human truths, seen through different lenses. If I may offer a critique of the so-called neo-pagan movement, it's this. The attempt to erase all vestiges of Christianity in order to restore a pure paganism does not actually bring back what our ancestors practiced. It creates something new, something unfamiliar. The pursuit of our ancient traditions cannot be rooted in reactionary anti-Christianism. It must be rooted in an objective search for truth. And the truth is this. Christianity did not create the values of the West. It inherited them. It borrowed, copied, and rebranded the traditions of our forefathers. Many of the Christian customs and symbols you know today, they were ours first. You are effectively cutting off your nose to spite your face. I ask only that you know the difference. Now, let's begin. Odin, a god of war, death, wisdom, but also a god of life, a god of transformation. He was not a figure of simple destruction, nor was he a mere warlord deity. He was the embodiment of creative destruction, the cycle of death and rebirth that ensures the survival of a people. The old must fall so the new can rise. The warrior must endure the fire to be reforged. This is the truth our ancestors understood well, long before Christianity took root in our lands. And yet, when Christianity came, many of our people saw something familiar within its teachings. Why? Because at its core, Christianity carries echoes of our oldest traditions. It is not something new. It is a rebranding of what we already knew. Perhaps the Indo-European Skyfather by another name, but the sacrifice of the god to bring forth new life, the same truth told in a different way. So what exactly did our ancestors see? Both Odin and Christ embody sacrifice, but not sacrifice for the sake of destruction, sacrifice as a means of transformation. Odin does not merely bring death, he brings knowledge. He hangs upon the world tree pierced by his own spear, sacrificing himself to gain wisdom. This is the path of the warrior, the man who steps into the chaos of war and emerges something more, his mind sharpened, his soul hardened, and his spirit untamed. Through the fury of battle, through trial of suffering, he pierces the veil between life and death. Jesus too undergoes this transformation. But his suffering is not an internal frenzy. It is an external agony, a test of endurance as he carries the cross as he is beaten, crucified, and left to die. His torment is not the berserker's rage, but a trial of patience, of acceptance, of divine will. Yet the result is the same, a transition between life and death, a moment where the barrier between worlds is broken. Odin and Jesus, both figures who walk the path of suffering to achieve something greater. One through fury, one through endurance, but both leading to the same destination: transcendence. Odin is a god of death and life, two sides of the same coin. Just as the animal must die to feed the tribe, just as the forest must burn to create farmland, just as war must come so that peace may follow, Odin's presence in death is not an ending, it is a transition. And this is where we see the heart of the Christian story. The resurrection of Christ is not a foreign concept to us. It is simply another version of the eternal cycle of renewal. Odin gives his eye to gain wisdom. He dies upon the world tree, but returns with knowledge. Likewise, Jesus suffers, dies, and rises again to bring salvation. Both stories tell us the same thing. Through sacrifice, something greater is born. Through death, new life is ensured. This is not an alien concept. This is the Indo-European soul speaking through time. Christianity did not replace our traditions, it absorbed them. It took the figure of the Sky Father, the Indo-European god of order, wisdom, and sacrifice, and gave him a new name. It took the values of our people, honor, struggle, transformation, and rebranded them under the banner of the church. Despite their claims, the church did not seek to erase Odin. It turned him into something else. Where once we had the warrior priest, the All-Father who led men into battle, we were given a figure of passive suffering. Where once we embraced the trials of life as necessary sacrifices, we were told that suffering should be endured for the sake of obedience. And yet, the echo of our traditions remain. The Christian narrative still carries the mark of its Indo-European origins. That is why our ancestors recognized something within it. It was a shadow of the truth they had always known. The difference? Odin's path is one of action. His sacrifice is a trade. Pain for wisdom, suffering for strength. The church's path became one of submission. Suffering for suffering's sake, obedience over struggle. And so, as the old ways were cast into the shadows, the warrior priest was turned into a martyr. So where does this leave us? It's not about rejecting the Christian story outright. It's about understanding where it came from. Recognizing that the wisdom of our ancestors was not erased, only repackaged. Odin was never just a god of war. He was the god of sacrifice and transformation, death and life as one. And this is the lesson that carried into the story of Christ. Though distorted, though reshaped, the core remains. Our ancestors saw something in the Christian story because they already knew its truth. But now, it's time to remember where that truth originated. The Sky Father is older than the church, and his wisdom flows through our blood, our history, and our people. And no matter how many times it's rewritten, it will never be forgotten. My challenge to you is this: look past the narrative. Can you see the wisdom our ancestors were trying to communicate? These myths, these legends, they weren't just stories meant to entertain around the fire. They were coded lessons, messages passed down by those who came before us, guiding us towards strength, towards wisdom, toward transcendence. What parallels can you see in your own life? What struggles? What victories? What sacrifices mirror the journeys of the gods and heroes? These stories endure because they speak to something eternal, something within us. They point to the truth, but it's up to us to see it. For too long, we've been taught that submission not to God, but to the church, to weak men, to external authority, is the only path. And what has it produced? A race of men who kneel, who apologize for their strength, who have forgotten what it means to stand upright before the heavens. But all is not lost. We have the ingredients within us. It's in our blood. The DNA of gods and kings flow through our veins. And we have the recipe book, mythology, philosophy, the wisdom of those who came before us. The only question left is this: do we have the will to transcend? Will we elevate ourselves? Will we become worthy of Olympus? Or will we continue to bow, to weaken, to let our greatness slip into the dust? The choice is ours. It always has been. Until next time.